Well, I have a last-minute special tour for us. Andrew Bunting is somebody who I had met at Chicago Botanic Gardens initially, right?
Yep.
And what was really lovely is that we started to speak about like different botanic gardens, and he's the one who actually pointed us to the Gothenburg or Göteborg Botanic Gardens in Sweden, which we had gone to. But now we have the distinct pleasure, now that you're Vice President of Horticulture at PHS, right, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, we have the distinct pleasure of being here in the area because you just so happen to be like 4 minutes away from where we're speaking. And he's going to show us and tour through his lovely gardens, which I have heard are divine, a little end of season gardens, but tell us a bit more about like how you found this place and how you started to cultivate the gardens here, and if there were some gardens here to begin with, or if you just started from scratch.
I've been here almost 25 years. The gardens, when I got here, were really no gardens. There was just lawn and some trees and some shrubs and pachysandra and ivy. And so probably the first year I just edited everything out.
Yeah.
You know, they say, you know, live with your garden for a year and observe and then do all that. I was like, I already knew what I didn't want. So I just ripped everything out. And the only things that exist today is when we go in the back, you'll see a tall hedge of spruces and there's one dogwood over what was the garage. So kind of like, you know, any kind of garden design project, I just kind of literally sketched it out on a piece of paper. So, you know, I kind of drew a box for the house. In the front, I wanted to be kind of cottagey. The back, I wanted a patio and maybe like tropicals around that. I wanted, you know, I knew there was a garage back there, and I thought at some point that could be repurposed into something else.
Like a potting shed?
Yeah, potting, well, you'll see.
Okay.
And then in the very back, I thought that'd be great for a woodland garden. I wanted a vegetable garden or herb garden. You know, I wanted one of everything.
You wanted it all.
Yeah. A pond.
Yeah.
So it's only 1/3 of an acre.
Yeah.
And, you know, like a lot of gardens, things have changed over time. So this was kind of cottagey to begin with.
Yeah.
And then there was a big tree over here in the corner, and this was more shady on this side, and that died. And then another tree over here died. And then I actually had been gone for 5 years.
Because you were in Chicago.
Right, I was in Chicago. I worked for the Chicago Botanic Garden. But for that period of time, I had somebody live in my house. And so the gardens were kind of cared for. And so I came back, and it was March 2020. You know, COVID was just starting.
Yeah.
My home office is right here. I was looking out on what seemed like a kind of dismal landscape. So I decided to convert the front into a gravel garden.
Which is so cool to see. It's like, and I see you have some of this euphorbia right here.
Yep, and that seeds around.
Is this like a moorgrass, or what is this?
Yeah, this is a Millennia Sky Racer.
Okay.
And then you can see the big Amsonias.
Yeah, these Amsonias here, and then...
Yeah, like these pre-existed in the former cottage garden.
And this is like Hubrichtii?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see they're just starting to turn yellow.
Yeah.
And they'll be this incredible golden fall color.
Are these the seed pods?
Yes.
Oh my God, they look almost like Apocynaceae, like
it's
in the milkweed family.
It's Amsonia. Yeah, I think it is Apocynaceae.
Really?
Yeah.
So do they have like a little white latex too? Or?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, cool.
I don't know if it'll show this time.
Oh yeah. All right. Look at that. Well, I had no idea. I had just planted a bunch of this in our gardens, and I had no connection until I saw the seed pods.
So in the spring, it's covered in little sky blue star-shaped flowers.
And this will get bright yellow.
Yeah,
like
incredible
this in the
fall color. So like the first year, if you plant one, it's like 1 or 2 spindly stems.
Mine was like this big.
And then
so
the next
tall.
year, it's like 3 spindly stems.
Yeah.
But then in the 3rd year, it takes on almost shrub-like proportions.
Right.
And the other great thing about it is my whole back garden is deer fenced one way or another. But out here, there's quite a bit of deer pressure. And so everything you see that doesn't look browsed is deer resistant. So typically anything with latex kind of sap, like euphorbias and the Amsonia are deer resistant.
Lavenders, which don't smell great to them, smells great to us.
Yeah, so anything that's fragrant, fuzzy leaves, grasses typically they don't eat.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they don't eat ferns. which seems like something they would eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, the yuccas they don't eat. Sometimes they eat the Vernonia, which is
one of our native plants.
Right, which is this here.
Yeah.
And this one too. This is Vernonia lettermanii, iron butterflies.
Which is a common cultivar.
Yes.
Vernonias, yeah. Well, that's cool that you figured it out. A gravel garden is such a nice garden to be met with,
right.
You know, because you could go a lot of different directions, and the blue colors are always so good. When I think of gravel gardens, I often think about those like bluish hued plants.
Right.
And you're zone 7 here, right?
Yeah,
6, 7?
7A.
7A, okay.
And also the idea with the gravel garden is, one, it's an aesthetic decision.
Yeah.
2 is, when I had the gravel garden built, we took out about 6 inches of soil, put in 2 inches of gravel and tilled that into the soil below, and then put 4 more inches of gravel on top. So once the plants are established, it's such an inhospitable environment that you rarely get any weeds. The only thing that I get seeding in here are the euphorbias, and then I have a bunch of poppies that come up in the spring.
Right.
But yeah, it's...
Is this like a pulsatilla, or what is
no,
this?
that's California poppy.
Oh, California poppies. Those would I imagine would seed.
Yeah, they seed all over and they're great.
Yeah.
You know, because the bright orange flowers, there's a couple back over, and that you can see a bunch of seedlings back there.
Yep.
And then I have some other poppies that come up in the spring as well.
Nice. Is this a Mahonia?
Yeah, that's Mahonia japonica. That blooms early spring. Good broadleaf evergreen. You know, definitely zone 6B7.
Yeah, I don't know if I could get away with this, but
yeah,
I could with the Pacific Northwest one I could get away with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I think up north where you live would just be too cold, I think.
Yeah, either that or it'd have to have a really protected environment, maybe on the south side or something.
Yeah, maybe a little courtyard or something.
And then I'd like to point out the vines. I mean, this is it's 5-finger Virginia creeper, right?
Yeah, well, this is actually an Asian one called...
it looks velvety.
Yeah, Parthenocissus henriana. And it's called the silver vein creeper. You can't really see it that much here, but sometimes these veins are more silvery. The undersides of the leaves can be a little kind of purplish.
Yeah.
And
well, here you go. This one is a bit more silver veined, the new growth.
And this vine is, you know, like a lot of people are afraid to put vines on their house, but the way this attaches is it has these tiny little tendrils. You can kind of see them here.
Yeah.
And at the tip of the tendrils, there's little suction cups. So
they look like little frog suction cups.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Look at this one right here. You see that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's not really, it doesn't really compromise the mortar on the house. And then if you want to pull it down, it's easy.
Yeah.
Like I'll cut this back, or even like if I wanted to just clean this up right now, I would just...
Oh boy. I guess he wants to clean it up right now.
Yeah, well, it grows about 20 feet a year.
Wow.
So I do need to do this from time to time.
I guess the only thing you would be concerned about is if it gets into your gutter and clogs your gutter.
Yeah, and that's why I need to, you know, so I'll come in and just cut this, and then literally within a week or so, it's back up.
You know, it's funny. I find it to be a more attractive species than our native one, Parthenocissus quinquefolia, which is actually, I would say, it's also good bird food during the winter months because they get berries on it. Obviously, people love the purple underside. They love kind of the silver veining in general in plants. It's just a nice horticultural kind of, and it feels more velvety. So it's interesting to see it like growing on the side of your house, similar to like what a Parthenocissus quinquefolia would be. Yeah, very attractive plant.
All right, need to clean that up later.
Thanks for demonstrating.
Why don't we go this way?
Sure, well, let's do that.
So one of the things I also did early on is, like around the foundation, I put in, at the time, this is 25 years ago, more kind of connoisseur plants.
Yeah.
So like the Mahonia was more unusual then. This is the wheel tree, Trocadendron Aurelioides, which is another unusual broadleafed evergreen. I put in this little, well, at the time it was like, you know, like this big osmanthus. You know, and they flower now. See, they're in flower now.
The smell of the flowers are very divine.
This one's called Goshiki.
It almost looks like a holly type.
It is.
Okay.
They actually call it the tea holly.
Huh.
So it's actually in the olive family. The genus is Osmanthus. There's many cultivars.
And is that a U in the back? Or?
Yeah, that's a fastigiate yew.
Okay.
So again,
So
it was
grows really...
These were all little when they went in.
And now, is this one of our native yews?
No, that's
Okay.
probably a Hexii type.
Because I was going to say, like, sometimes like deer will eat yew.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
but
they,
the fact that
they
you
probably
have
can't.
it-
They probably can't get to it.
Yeah, it's back there, you know. So
Although they'll eat those hydrangeas they eat, you can see.
This is an arborescence.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that just seeded in, but that's all deer damage.
Yes. Well, this is a native hydrangea. I feel like, at least in our place, some of the weird hydrangeas that have like red leaves from Japan or whatever, they won't touch, but they will quercifolia and arborescence.
Yeah.
They'll mow them
Yeah,
down.
yeah, and I have more in the back, and
Yeah.
they're perfectly fine.
Interesting. Quintessential deer damage right there. You can see. Oh, beauty berries. Calicarpa.
Yep. So that is the driveway, and then the driveway used to continue all the way down to that building, which was the garage.
I see.
So we'll head down that way.
Okay. This is a cute little outbuilding. So this
Yeah.
used to be the garage.
Used to
you're
be the
saying?
garage. That was the garage door.
So it looks like a little guest house or
Exactly.
something.
So it has electric, but no plumbing. And we'll go in there. But it's a great like indoor outdoor space for entertaining, especially
Oh,
in the
it's
summer.
fabulous. Yeah. Or if there was like a little rainstorm, you could just duck in
Yeah,
there.
mosquito free.
That's
Which is a
great.
real issue during most of the summer.
Yeah.
Almost all the furniture I have is designed and made by Dan Benarsik.
I was speaking with our friends, Dan and Peggy Ann, and she's like, he has more Dan Benarsik furniture than I do. And, back history, Peggy Ann is Dan's wife, so it's just so funny.
Yeah, I joked that I could open the Dan Benarsik Furniture Museum. Like he made this potting table years ago.
Wow.
First thing he
nice.
made was this bench, which is kind of compromised now, but that's
But it's part of the charm.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about like older gardens, and it's being inhabited by moss and lichen, and there's a look to that, right?
Yeah.
It may not be practical to sit on anymore, but it actually becomes part of the garden,
And that hydrangea, if you want an incredible shrub for pollinators, this
Yes.
is Hydrangea arborescens Haas's halo.
That somebody just mentioned it to me yesterday.
So
They handed me a
these-
card with it, and they said they have huge inflorescences and pollinators.
Yeah, I'm sure
are
it was
all
Rick
over.
Ray.
Rick Ray, yeah.
He's the one that discovered it.
Oh, really? Okay.
And what it has is, so these are the showy florets like you see on any hydrangea, but in the center, they're all fertile florets. They're just tiny kind of frothy white flowers, which attract a myriad of pollinators.
And it's just this specific cultivar.
Yes.
And was it bred for a specific reason, or
No,
did
he
he
just found it. He just found a
and named
chance
it?
seedling.
Okay.
That's right.
Wow. All right, that's what he was mentioning, because I was like, oh, well, he's like, do you know what the plant this is? And I was like, well, I know it's a hydrangea arborescens, but I don't know a cultivar. And I was telling him, I said, well, I have other cultivars, but he kept on insisting like this one was the best pollinator
It
one.
actually is.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's nice to corroborate that.
So yeah, this back patio is, mostly annuals and tropicals for the summer.
Your Lespedeza is still blooming.
Yeah.
Mine ended really early. And everybody would always say this is one of the longest bloomers, but mine didn't.
Now mine is late for some reason. I think,
Yeah.
and I think maybe because there's more shade now back here than there once was.
Is this a specific cultivar? Do you
Yeah,
know?
I think this is Gibraltar,
Gibraltar. Okay, that's the one I normally see at like a
Right.
botanic garden or whatnot.
and it's kind of a perennial / shrub. Like I cut it to the ground every
Yeah.
year and treat it like a perennial, but it does bloom really late. It's in the pea family. It's great for maybe putting on top of a wall and allowing it to kind of cascade over. You know, there aren't many shrubs that bloom this late in the season.
Right. And are these like some types of like a hardy ginger?
That's a hardy ginger. This is Zingiber myoga.
Oh, so it's a myoga ginger. You could eat the flowers.
Okay, I didn't know that, but
okay,
yeah, I grow it mainly for its foliage, and then I have a little variegated one around the corner. And again, this is something that, you know, 10 years ago would have been, you know, would not have been considered hardy here.
Yeah.
And now it's seemingly perfectly hardy.
Well, what's funny is like we're in zone 5-6. This is hardy to our zone.
Wow.
So, and I think what happens is that people grow it, maybe it's a grower in 7. It's kind of like the Plant Delights nursery guy where he's like maybe hardy to 5-6, but he's growing it in 7, so he doesn't know, or growing it in 8. But yeah, my experience with this is, you know, obviously it dies all the way back, but even the variegated one has come up, and I think it's become more of like a plant touted by like some permaculturists or some people who are looking for exotic edible plants, and this is definitely one that could fit into the exotic category as far as the ginger goes. Yeah, but the flowers, I guess, come up at the base, and then it's a popular delicacy. They will like, you know, pickle them or.
Yeah, I think these are flowers down here.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's them. Yep. That looks just like them. The pink ones, I think, is what is usually harvested. Cool. Really cool to see. There's another Dan.
Yes, another Dan share, another one. He even made these metal tours.
Handyman Dan.
So one of the first things I did in the garden was planted kind of key trees. So one of the first things was this paperbark maple.
Wow, yours is so big. Wow.
So maybe that was like, you know, let's just say it was 5 years old when I planted it. So it's probably 30 years old.
Okay. We have 2 of those on our land, Sonder, but ours are really spindly compared to this. So this is something maybe we could look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously took a while to get to that stature.
Yeah.
Another thing I planted early on were these cryptomerias, and I planted 6 across the property. So this is called the Japanese red cedar.
These are the ones that you love.
And there's one way in the corner there, it's hard to see, but these 2, you know, as you stand back and look at the yard, really give it a feeling of more maturity.
Yeah.
They are messy. They're always dropping this kind of stuff.
Are they deciduous, technically?
No, they're evergreen, but every storm drops loads of these little brown branches.
I see.
And, you know, after like the 8th storm of the year, you're like, surely there's no more dead stuff up there, and then more comes down. So yeah, the summer house is, so what we did is, I hired an architect, and what the architect did is anything that was stone kind of remained as kind of the foundational piece, and then anything that's wood was built new about 15 years ago. So kind of there's 2 entrances. This entrance is more kind of Mediterranean. I say this is like Mediterranean, California, and then the other side is like South Beach, Miami.
So can we walk through that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's Salvia hot lips.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plant. Ooh, this is so sweet. It almost like feels like I could be smoking a cigar and talking art in here.
There's been many parties in here over the years.
So you said it doesn't have plumbing, but it has a little heat and stuff?
Not heat, but I can put a space heater out here.
In here, yeah.
In fact, I put a space heater and keep it around freezing in here, and I have a big palm on the patio that I put in here. And like a purple cordyline. So things that can take it pretty, not freezing, but close to freezing.
And just need a little protection from the wind or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is good for that.
Oh, it's so cool because it has almost its own little built-in courtyard. It's so nice. It's just like a little quaint, you know, that could double as like a plant display house.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah.
You know, for big parties, that gets pulled out and that becomes the bar.
And I love how this is like more of like an arbor, and
Yes.
this is, you know, a protective place for you to stand under if it's raining. It's and it gives the right amount of light, yet connects it to the garden as like a piece for the garden.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of backdrop for the garden.
Very well done. Is this a hardy Musa?
Yeah, that's Musa Basju.
Yep. How do you cut this? Like, how do you cut this back? How do you treat
Yeah,
this?
what I'll do with this is I'll let it get frosted, and then I'll cut these leaves off, and then I'll probably just cut it back to about here.
Yep.
And then I may put a little mulch around the base. And generally that's good enough. And there's a guy that lives the town over in Morton, and he had one in his backyard that was a grove that was probably 20 feet high and 20 feet wide. So once it gets going, you know, it's stoloniferous in nature.
Yeah. And then let's see, this is like a blue mist flower?
Yeah, that's, yes, Solestinum.
Yeah.
You know, and that I guess is perennial, but seeds all over the place.
And this is a woodland sunflower?
Yeah, this is I got this from Stoneleigh. It's a helianthus.
Yep.
I think like Argyrophilus.
Okay, no, then it might
it's
not
an
be.
annual. It has
Okay.
kind of glaucous white undersides of the leaves.
Oh, look at this salvia. Which one is this? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I mean, it looks
beautiful.
like one that's called Argentina Skies, but I have a feeling it's not that.
It's so shrubby,
it could
you know?
be. There's another one called Black and Blue.
Yeah.
It might be that one. You know, a lot of salvias are bloom when the days get short.
Yeah.
So like a lot of these salvias will just keep going until it frosts.
And did you have any idea for like color palette, or you just kind of wanted to have whatever, you know?
Have whatever.
Yeah.
I am probably gonna, I think the next change I'm gonna make is I'm gonna concentrate the tropicals to one area. And then in some of these areas I wanna put in more kind of pollinator plants.
Yeah.
Kind of just make it more sustainable, I guess. And maybe even over there, like that border's all Hosta Crossoregal. There's a couple hydrangea, tiny tough stuffs. There's some hydrangea Annabelles back in there.
Yeah.
So maybe the front of it, make that, again, more permanent perennials.
Now, I kind of fall into the category of like, I like to plant really densely at first because the plants might be small. And then I'm like, I'll edit it out later. And I did a shrubbery, and like a lot of the shrubs we're getting is maybe like 3 to 4, maybe at most like 5 feet high and wide. And I tried my best to kind of separate them, but then, oh, is that the alarm? The fire alarm?
That's the fire alarm.
That's the one that they were telling us about last night, the weird Swarthmore like fire alarm that sounds like a elephant.
Yeah, and when you're standing at the base of it, you'll jump out of your shoes, it's so loud.
Well, anyway.
So yeah, a little Swarthmore flavor there.
Yeah, there you go.
It sounds like an elephant.
It sounds like an elephant. But anyway, so I'm planting these plants 3, 4, 5 feet high and wide, and I'm like, I'm tempted because I just want to start filling in more gaps because there's still a gap to fill. Did you plant that way? Do you think that you plant that way, or and you're like, oh, they got big all of a sudden? And
Yeah, I think I'm a little, probably somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Like I do try to get at least shrubs and stuff, give them kind of space they need. I probably do overplant perennials.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes like a plug is only this big,
Yeah.
even though it's going to get like that big.
Exactly. Because I look at your Amsonias and I'm like, oh boy, I hope I gave them enough room. You know? 3 years.
You can always move them or edit them.
This is beautiful. What's this?
This is Edgeworthia chrysantha. So this is a relative of Daphne. And what's interesting is it sets its flowers this time of year. And so the leaves will fall off, say, in a month or so. And then there'll be these little buds that are kind of whitish silver, which are attractive. And then in typically like end of February, March, they open up and it's this collection of tubular yellow flowers that are fragrant, like a Daphne. I like it as much for its summer foliage.
Yeah,
it has kind of a tropical effect.
It's an attractive shrubby plant.
Yep.
And Daphnes, I think of like, I see them usually on like rock gardens, like well draining,
Right.
that type of stuff. Is this similar, or is it
Not
kind
really.
of,
It's
okay.
not as, a lot of Daphnes are notorious for being fickle.
Yeah, yes.
And then as soon as they're looking good, they just die for whatever reason. Edgeworthia is a lot tougher. It's still maybe more of a connoisseur type plant.
Yeah, where is it native to? Do you know?
I think China,
China,
maybe Japan. They can get actually maybe twice the size.
Is this also another Aralia? Or what is
Yeah, this is a Aralia Sun King.
Yes, okay,
But
so.
this is a perennial, so it
Yeah.
dies to the ground. Here's another one here.
Yep.
They can have really kind of bright golden foliage in the shade. They can actually take quite a bit of sun as well.
Okay.
The deer don't eat it.
Begonia grandis in here in the
Yep.
back.
Yep, this is the fruit.
Our one
They've just finished
begonia that we
flowering.
could grow that's hardy.
And then they have great undersides to the leaves.
Yes.
And these just kind of serendipitously seed throughout the garden. So if you don't want it wherever it seeds in, it's super easy to pull
Pop it out, yeah. And this is kind of what you meant by your little woodland garden in the
Yeah,
back.
so this is, so over time, like this tree here is a yellowwood,
Yes.
Cladrastis kentuckia. As it's grown, it's got more shady in the front. So the garden is kind of extended farther and farther out into the lawn. These are the spruces I talked about that are original to the property.
Right.
And even though they, you would think, oh, they really haven't grown that much over 25 years. When I look at the size of them, they've grown probably dozens of feet.
Yeah.
And it's just become more and more dense back here, so much so that it's become such dry shade that in parts back here, it's really hard to establish anything. Like especially up against the fence here. Like I've put in some hellebores recently, but it's it's almost impossible to dig.
Yeah.
Because of the
roots
of the spruce. I have put in some shrubs like this. This is Daphnophyllum macropodum, which is an unusual kind of broad-leafed evergreen.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
It can grow in like extreme dry shade, so I might concentrate more on those.
These look like, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking of the polygonums, like.
Yeah. So it kind of looks like a polygonatum, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's actually a toad lily.
Whoa.
So it's Tricertus is the genus for toad lily. This one is Tricertus macranthopsis. It grows like this kind of cascading stems, and then the flowers kind of spill over the side.
Yeah.
Probably be good to like grow on top of a wall and let it spill over.
Yeah. But it's blooming in this, like you said, dry shade.
Yeah,
so.
and a lot of toad lilies are late flowering. This is kind of the time of year they typically flower. So the pond is one of the first things I put in. I turned off the pump the other day, but normally water comes through there, and that's actually the old barbecue grill that was pre-existing.
Wow, okay.
So the water kind of spills through there and then just recirculates.
Yeah.
So when
what a reuse, You're like,
Right.
that's where I used to cook pizzas. That's the old pizza.
So yeah, this is all kind of woodland garden. It's like any garden. It's constantly changing. Needs some probably editing and probably some just limbing up.
Well, the thing is, when the plants start to grow, sometimes it just gets away on you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, do I want to cut that back or don't I?
Yeah, or it seems like it holds its own. So
Yeah.
there's other parts of the garden that are in more need of my attention, I guess.
Now, what's this funky one with like kind of like sassafras-like leaves, but much larger?
Yep, that's a good description. This is a Chinese spice bush.
So similar, Lindera, like Lindera benzoin, like our.
Lindera obtusiloba.
Okay.
And like you said, it has leaves like a sassafras. Some are kind of three-lobed, some are single-lobed. There may even be some kind of mitten-shaped ones.
Can our spice bush swallowtail put its young on this?
Yeah,
I wonder?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. This one gets probably the best fall color of almost any plant on the property. It'll turn golden yellow.
Huh.
And it blooms in the spring like our native spice bush, yellow flowers. Deer resistant, all the linderas are deer resistant. It's one of the few. Our native one is one of the few shrubs that will survive
That's right.
deer predation.
And is this like a witch hazel or
Yeah,
what is
it's a
this?
witch hazel relative Fothergilla.
Fothergilla, okay. So is this a specific cultivar?
Yeah, this one I think is Mount
Airy?
This one is Mount Airy.
Oh my God, it gets so big.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it gets maybe even a little bigger than that, but it gets incredible kind of sugar maple fall color, like oranges and reds,
oranges,
yellows. Really good. And then in the spring it has like a white bottle brush flower that's fragrant.
Yes, and the insects love it. The insects love it. And it is based on, I think, one of our native Fothergillas as well.
It is.
Gardneria or something.
Yeah, I think it's considered a hybrid between Gardenia and Major.
Gardenia, okay.
Yeah.
And these are funky. I haven't seen this.
Yeah, that's a cut leaf elderberry.
Oh,
Sambucus laciniata. I just cut it to the ground every year and really grow its.
Do you get flowers and berries on it, or is it?
No,
more
I
about
think
the
because
leaves?
I cut it back every year, I kind of forego that.
Okay. And tell me about this one.
Yeah, so this is a holly. This is Ilex, I think Coniana.
So not a native.
Not a native. It's a hybrid between two different Asiatic species. Quick growing, probably again zone more 6B, 7. But I think, all these plants that we once thought were kind of marginal, regardless of where you live, are probably worth trying out.
Yeah. They almost look like from far away, like a golden currant, And then your hostas and some of your viburnums, are these viburnums?
Yeah, this is hydrangea. This is
Hydrangea,
tiny tough stuff.
Okay.
Which is a serrata type.
Yeah.
So that's more of a, diminutive form. And then, the hostas are all Crassa regal, another Fothergilla. Those hydrangeas back there, Annabelle. The taller plants are the sweet bay magnolia, Magnolia virginiana.
Oh, so they could get pretty large too.
Oh yeah, they'll get, they could get 40 feet tall.
Yeah, they'll be shading some things out.
Yeah, I wanted them there to provide kind of an evergreen screen, ultimately, of my neighbors.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to the back garden?
Yeah.
Check that out?
Yeah, sure,
All right.
Absolutely. I didn't even know there was an extra bonus.
Yeah, bonus, like your lecture yesterday.
Yeah,
this is the bonus garden.
Oh, fantastic. I just didn't know if I was going to have enough time, 60 minutes. I thought I was bumping up against it, but I had plenty of time.
So this is the bonus garden. All this land is my neighbor's yard.
Really?
So about 10 years ago, I approached them about creating a vegetable garden.
Yeah.
So I went to them in January with a design.
Yeah.
And the arrangement would be that I would design it, pay for everything, maintain it. We would partake in the harvest. And so...
Because they weren't using it.
They weren't using it. It was all
grass?
kind of grass.
Okay,
And along here there was a bunch of invasive exotic trees.
I see.
And at the time I owned a landscaping company as well, so it was, I had the capacity to do this type of work.
Yeah.
So it was vegetables for, probably 8 years. The light has gotten so compromised because of all the big surrounding trees.
You could grow kale, basically.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is create some little garden rooms. They have some granddaughters, so maybe something that's fun and whimsical, where they can kind of play around in.
Yeah.
But
the table itself is actually fun and whimsical.
Yeah, that's another Dampenarsic piece.
Yeah.
It's a little compromised, but still looks pretty good.
Yeah, and then you have your composting back there, which I think is important. Your gardener, where do you put your
All right, so it's great. I just put in their yard.
Yeah. It's part of the
And
plan.
then I had chickens, many different broods of chickens. But I went to South Africa 2 years ago, and there was an incursion. There there must have been a little hole.
Yeah.
You can see I've replaced the chicken wire, but there was like a little rusty hole, and I think over the course of multiple nights, like a fox's pride,
Yeah.
and they got in there, killed all 6.
Oh no.
But
Oh my heart.
another issue with chickens kind of backyard chickens is rats.
Yeah.
You know, because they'll come and eat
the grain and
grain
the
and
seed,
stuff. So I enjoyed having them, but I'm not sure
whether you want them again.
Right.
Yeah.
So up above us are 4 Asian persimmons.
Ooh. Diospyros.
Yeah, Diospyros khaki. So the native persimmon is Diospyros
virginiana, right?
Right.
Yeah.
These, depending on the cultivar, like this one, I'll try to grab one. So some can look like this, kind of like a squat little pumpkin.
Yep.
And then others, like this one is one called Seijo.
More long.
Yeah, it has more kind of an egg-shaped fruit.
And you have to let them sit out for a while, right?
Well, the native one, if you eat, when it's ripe, if you take it off the tree and eat it, it'll make your mouth pucker up.
Yeah.
These
are naturally sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is ripen. You know, they're probably still 3 weeks away from ripening.
Yep.
In a good year, I can have as many as 700 persimmons per tree.
Wow.
And you really want to have, like, these are 2 different cultivars, 2 different clones.
So they could cross.
Yes, cross-pollinate for good fruit set. They also have really good fall color. I think they're pretty urban tough. They're probably zone 6B.
Yeah.
And there's maybe half a dozen to a dozen cultivars.
And our Diospyros is like, you could see it growing in maybe a little bit more, sometimes as an understory tree. It might not have a great fruit set, but it is an understory. Similar to like Asimina triloba, which is our pawpaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, both are understory trees. These seem to like more sun, but you know, if you have like this one laden with fruit, it's quite ornamental.
It's beautiful. I love this table that Dan did. It's so it has a touch of whimsy to it.
The tops are made out of ginkgo, and then the base are arborvitae stumps.
The arborvitae stumps seem to be holding up pretty good.
Yeah. I think I just need the tops replaced.
Yeah.
And then that low blue gate is the entrance into my neighbor's backyard. So they wanted a gate that was more inviting.
Yeah.
And then you'll see my gate is more like, if you see those little medallions on the side, idea is if it's closed, you find a medallion that's your eye height and move it to the side and you get a little peep into this kind of secret garden.
That's cool. Yeah, love that concept.
And then the hedge is all Thuya green giant, and that gets sheared once a year in August. So it is kind of...
It's like a living fence.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get a better look at the spruces from here.
Oh yeah, these are like Norway spruces, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Which, you know, when these houses were built 75 years ago, that was the
thing, the tree du jour.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. You know, every single property around here has them.
We have them too, yeah, for sure. Oh, what's this one that's blooming right here?
Right, so that's I'll have to look this up. I've gotten a lot of weird things over the years.
Yeah.
And I think we'll have to make sure this is correct, but I think this is...
The ants are loving it.
An Asian Gordonia. I think it's Gordonia axillaris. So Gordonia grows down like along the swamps in the Okefenokee, you know, in southern, our native Gordonia, Gordonia lasianthus.
It looks like it could be like, it will hold its leaves.
Yeah, it's evergreen, but again, this is probably more like zone 8B.
Huh.
But I just like, and there's some other things like that I just kind of tuck in here, and if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't.
You can't blame a man for trying, that's for sure. Well, thank you so much for taking us through.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And even doing the little bonus secret garden. We trust you enjoyed that garden tour, particularly as we are putting our gardens to bed further north. Now, if you find yourself enjoying our videos, consider liking, subscribing, and even tipping. 10% of our Google AdSense proceeds are reinvested back into community-based projects in the Finger Lakes region, and that's matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic. So even by watching and supporting, you're helping us and the community. See you in the next video.